us. He is going to share his life, his testimony, the things the Lord has done and is doing currently and has done in his life. And so we're so glad to have Jim. We're asking him to come and share with us today.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I've heard Tim say a couple of times that even after 20-some years coming up here, he gets nervous. And I can see why. There's all these people, and they're looking at me. So I am by no means a public speaker, so please forgive me. This may take me a while to get rolling. Good morning, everybody. This is a glorious day for sure. 5 years ago when Harry was up here, I thought, while he was up here speaking and the sun was shining through the window, I thought, my gosh, this is perfect. So I'm glad to be here. I am nervous, so just bear with me. I'm Jim Shay. I'm 57 years old. I've spent the last 11 years being a practicing Christian with 11 glorious years in this place here. My wife is Kim, which she's here in the front row. Raise your hand, Kim. And the excellent young man beside her is Jordan, my son. We live in Bear Rocks. We've been here 30 years, and we really love this mountain area. It's been home to us. Today, for my testimony, I was kind of struggling figuring out what I wanted to talk about. And I think that the biggest thing in my life has been those nudges from God that come into your life, and God directs you, and you don't really know it at the time, but there's times when it's small things, but there's times when it's life-altering stuff, and you don't realize it at the time. So I kind of wanted to go over some of those. There's like 100 of them, but no, we're only going to go over 7 of them. So my father was in the Air Force in the mid-'60s, and so I was born in New York, and my sister was born in Arizona. So after he got out of his 4 years in the Air Force, we ended up moving back to Pennsylvania and starting a family life. My father was a pretty troubled guy. He had a lot of trauma in his life, and as he grew up, his father died early. He was like 12 or 13 years old when his father died. And he turned to alcohol pretty early in his life. So that kind of ruled his life, basically, for the rest of his life. It ultimately led to his death. So there was some bad, there was some good stuff. The good stuff was, after one of those traumas, the death of my baby brother, he was about 2 weeks old. My dad turned to God. He still had his alcohol problems, but he was very faithful to God. And so even though, like my friend Mark was up here 2 years ago, he told us about how he grew up with the church in his life and Jesus in his life. We weren't like that. But that small building block was there from my father. As a kid, I remember one of my favorite memories was watching the 10 Commandments every Easter. And I always thought it was cool that we could follow along in the Bible, and what was on the TV was in the Bible. And I always just thought that was so cool that we were able to see the living Word. So even though he had his issues and we had family issues, that small seed of faith started. And eventually that would grow. So from the next part of my life, really that was important was after high school, I enlisted in the Marine Corps. So I was in there for 4 years. And towards the end of my enlistment, I had an opportunity to re-enlist. So I remember trying to think of what should I do, and I thought probably if I stayed in that I would probably do the 20 years and retire from there. But God kind of had other plans for me, not knowing at the time, so that was number one, nudge number one. I decided that I wasn't going to stay. So after I got out of the Marine Corps, I took a job at Montgomery Ward's at Green Gate Mall, and that was a pretty decent job. And I worked at the counter. So one day, I'm there, and I'm sorry, I'm going to cry a little bit too, so you guys just know that. This beautiful girl walks in, of course, with her boyfriend by the name of Kim. I'm sorry. So God would take care of that boyfriend thing for me. She worked in another part of the store, and at one point she got transferred into the auto center with us, and we got to know each other, and we got close, and eventually we got married. So that was nudge number 2. God brought her into my life. So we had a few years, 15 years to be exact, of selfish Kim and Jim time before nudge number 3 came, which is Jordan. So, we tried for a while with him, but God's timing was involved, and that'll come here in a minute. So Jordan was born, and I thought Kim was beautiful, but when I saw that little baby, I thought he was so much more. So we have our happy little family, and I thought life is complete, but we weren't quite there yet. As Jordan was growing up, we started thinking about preschool for him, and we didn't really know what we were going to do. And the timing of this having to do with when he was born was another thing. My friend Ryan calls and says, "Hey, Brendan is going to preschool at Champion Christian School right up the road from us. Do you think Jordan could join him?" So it was really kind of a perfect situation for us because it was right up the road, and Kim was taking a job right down the road from there, so it was perfect. She could drop him off, pick him up. So the whole thing with CCS was we ended up there. Life for us from CCS was a life changer for us. There we learned to be giving and caring and compassionate and sacrificial for others. And we have Merle and Barb to thank for that, because not coming from that Christian background, that was so much different for us. But that was the beginnings of where we're at today. So Jordan is at that school, and I was always uncomfortable with the fact that he's at a Christian school and we really weren't going to church. So my sister-in-law had mentioned about that she heard about this nice little church in White. So we all got together and we thought, okay, we're going to come visit this church and see how it was. And honestly, for me, I don't know for Kim, but for me, when we walked through the door, when we walked through that door, I knew that we belonged here. And I thank Pastor Tim especially for being at that door that day and for being so welcoming. There's a lot of examples in this church, as there was at CCS, of that kindness and giving and caring and being sacrificial for each other. But there's two people in particular, and this is probably going to be a little bit emotional for me. The first was Shannon Bell. A couple of things that stuck out to me for Shannon was that as her sister was sick, she had cancer, during her illness and her death, Shannon wasn't really one to dwell on the fact that she was sick. I mean, she did talk about it, but it wasn't an overriding factor in her life. Many examples of Shannon talking about the need for Jesus as your Savior and the love and the hope that he brings to you always stuck out to me. So that was the first thing about Shannon that I really, really just will always remember about her. The second thing was in this very spot, a couple of years later when she had her own health issues, she came here and she talked to us not about how she was overcoming her health problems, but how she encountered a young man at a funeral that she was able to help. He had caused a death to somebody in an accident, and she was able to bring to him comfort by showing him that he was still loved. So that's the two things for Shannon that I will always carry in my heart. The second person here is Miss Kelly, who's sitting there. Through her efforts of surrogacy, she was able to help a family to be complete. She did this by sacrificing her time, her comfort, and her health. God worked through her to show the good, to show that there is always a way and that he will always provide. After all the things that I had noticed about Shannon, I always thought to myself, I want to be able to do that. I want to help people. And with Kelly doing what she did for that family, it made me want to do that even more. So, Miss Kelly, thank you for providing me some inspiration. That need that I had inside myself was something that really hit me with number 7. God hit me with a ton of bricks. As I look back and I see all these little pushes from God, from to go here, to go there, the major stuff, I look back and I think about our journey here to this church, and Harry and Karen had started here about the same time. So I think about these two paths that came together and crossed each other. So number 7 is, of course, the kidney. Harry and Karen started coming here, and we didn't really know them too much for a while, but right about where Ed's sitting is where Kim and I used to sit, and Harry and Karen would always sit behind us, so we got to know each other a little bit. And we came to find out that Karen had kidney disease. So we chatted about that a little bit. We'd chat here every now and then about it and how she's doing and all that. So one day we were sitting there talking, and I had to go to Sunday school. I said, well, I got to go. And she said, okay, and got up, and I gave her a hug. And as simple as that, I had the thought in my head, I could give her a kidney. So it was just a thought in my head. It was rattling around in there for a while. So a couple of days later, I thought, that's God telling me that I need to do this. So I prayed about it for a while. I talked to Pastor Tim about it. And I got to the point where I was convinced that that's what I needed to do. So I talked to Kim about it, and my first thought was, if Kim says no, then it's no, because I need her on board with this. And she was very reluctant. She didn't really see that that was something that I needed to do. So time went on. I didn't really press the issue. We chatted about it maybe once or twice. And at one point, I was talking to Karen here about, she was going for a blood test, and I said I donated blood fairly often, and she said, what blood type are you? And I said A positive. She goes, oh, that's cool, I'm A positive also. And that's the first factor in kidney donation, is you have to be the same blood type. So I went home that day after church, and Kim and I were in the kitchen, and I just mentioned to her that Karen and I were the same blood type, and she said, she kind of chuckled, and she said, well, I guess you're going to donate a kidney then, huh? So she didn't really say it in the way that, like, yeah, go ahead and do that. So I let it go for a little bit. And so the next couple of conversations I had with Miss Karen was that she was getting close to going on dialysis. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. Dialysis is pretty tough. Some people tolerate it pretty well, some people don't. So when we got home that day, I said to Kim, again in the kitchen, I said, Karen told me today that she's going to have to start dialysis pretty soon. And Kim looked at me and she said, well, you're going to go get tested, right? Just like that. So I made my appointment to get tests done to see if we were a match. And after I made the appointment, I was really nervous. So the day comes for the appointment, I go to the hospital. I walked in that hospital, and a calm just came over me, like I knew everything was going to be okay. So God was telling me in that moment, it's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. So that whole process of testing, many tests, let me tell you. Somehow I survived the psych eval. I don't know how that happened. There was a cool moment too there. I even had to go to Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh for a test. And that was a nice uplifting moment for me, because even when these kids are very sick, very ill, and they're in the hospital, they still find a way to play and have fun. It was an amazing time for me. I was there for a whole day, and I just loved being there. So, God had laid that on my heart, and honestly, I think that's how he talks to me, is through my heart. Harry testified to us that when God talked to him, he physically heard God. Kim, a few years back, had some health issues. Her encounter with God was a healing touch. She felt that. God talks to me in my heart. So we're up to the point where I have to tell Harry and Karen, hey, if you want a kidney, you can have a kidney. So we went back to Tim's office, and Tim was with us. And the reaction that they had when we told them was what you'd expect. They were excited and overwhelmed. But I felt that that was the beginning of God fulfilling my desires for my life. That I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to be able to do something for somebody else that would have a meaningful impact. And although on the surface that's what that is, honestly, that's not really what happened. It was actually the complete opposite of that. Harry's going to disagree with me, but by Karen saying yes and accepting that kidney, she blessed me 1,000 times more than I blessed her with that little old kidney. My life is different now. It's like I'm in God's favor to the highest degree. I get a little bit emotional when I speak about all this because basically, I find it hard to believe that God would speak to me. Like he gave me that, and I tell people that all the time. If I say, yeah, I donated a kidney, they always say, oh, that's nice. And I'm like, but it wasn't my idea. It was God's idea. So I feel that God speaking to me and putting me in that situation and the blessing that I got was a result of all those nudges from God, okay? If I stay in the Marine Corps, I don't come to Pennsylvania, come back. I don't meet Kim. We don't have Jordan. We don't go to school to CCS, and we don't end up in this church. So those large things in life that God has you do, you don't realize them at the time. We can only look back on that stuff from behind and say, listen, here's the roadmap of my life, and God's fingerprints are all over it. So my desire was for that. Is that it for me? I don't know. I guess we'll see in another 20 years when I can look back on it. I hope not. But we'll see. So that's pretty much all I have. I do have a couple of things that I want to say as far as thank yous, if I could, if we have some time. First on that list is Pastor Tim and Miss Sharon. I want to thank you, and Kim wants to thank you for the love that you've poured into this church and everything that you do for us. Okay, I'm sure that you guys know that, but just know that I appreciate that from top to bottom. Mark Martin, Sam, Mark Sharlock, Mike Trimboli, I thank you guys for your leadership in this church and keeping the ship going. Ryan Martin and Ryan Keller, thank you for your passion for leading the youth of this church and teaching them about Jesus. The two Nicoles, Nicole Cease, Nicole Mowry, and Gretchen, I thank you guys for always laughing at my stupid jokes and for the hugs. Mike Mowry, Justin Fligger, Ryan Martin, and Jason. I thank you guys for being an example to me of being a solid Christian, okay? Also in that realm is Nicole, Jen, Melissa, and Janelle. Thank you for making them solid Christians to be an example for me. And Mark and Jill, I thank you guys for everything you do for us. and for being the ultimate example of Christ's love for us. And then I wanted to say about, there's my three favorite ladies in this world. Okay, first is my mother. She endured a lot with my father for the 50-some years that they were married. I want to thank Kim for tolerating me for 30-plus years. And I want to thank Miss Karen for accepting my kidney and bringing the blessings that she's brought me upon my life. And that's all. Thank you.